Hey everyone, this is Samantha, founder and host of Type 1 Tribe, an interview series with T1D leaders all over the country. Our guest today is Zack Schreier. He is the founder of Quevos, a high protein, low carb snack, and also the founder of LifeStacks. So we're so happy to have you here with us today, Zack.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, a little bit more about the two companies you run.
Sure. I grew up in Chicago, still live there. I was diagnosed in sixth grade, and so I've had a lot of thinking about health over the years, and that got me into thinking about food and diet. And then founded the company with my best friend from growing up, where we made a snack that works for me and other diabetics. It's as you mentioned, low in carbs and high in protein, also high in fiber, which is an underrated component of the diet for sure. People are catching up now, but we've got a hefty 4 grams of fiber in each serving. And then I also founded LifeStacks, which is a supplement company. And the idea there is that nutraceuticals are basically this entire class of substances that have been rigorously studied. And the reason for that is they were already present in our diets and traditional medicine. And there was some speculation for one reason or another that these would be effective bioactive ingredients. And in many cases, that's been confirmed. So there's roughly 1,000 ingredients that do have some efficacy that's been clinically studied. And so LifeStacks is all about bringing those things into the diet to make nourishment more convenient for everybody.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you're running both still? You're part of both?
Yes. My role at Quevos was really to ideate, so come up with the concept and then develop the products. And
okay.
So I spent about a year doing that during college. And then my co-founder, Nick, has been full-time on that company for 4 years now. So he's really the CEO, but I'm still on the board, and we, make strategic decisions together.
And you were on Shark Tank.
Yes, we were on Shark Tank. Yeah.
And you got a deal.
Yeah, we got a deal. Yeah, it was really exciting.
From what's his name? Daniel. How do you say his last name?
Lubetsky. Founder of Kind Bar.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they were in a good mood that day. So that's
well, hey,
fun, I think.
I brought these because I absolutely love them. They're so good. So if the people watching, if you have not had them, you have to get them because they're so good.
Awesome. Yeah, we're on Amazon and Quevos.com for anybody interested.
Yes, and I'm a huge snacker. So when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was like, oh no, like I'm not going to be able to snack, because of everything. But now that I have these amazing options, it makes it a lot easier for me. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious. So we've got roughly 4 net carbs in each bag, or maybe actually exactly 4 net carbs. What do you notice in terms of sugar spiking or not from the chips? Is it
nothing? Nothing happens. And so I don't even know, like how many carbs? Yeah, 7 grams. I've never taken insulin for this. Depending on your insulin ratio, you might have to, I guess. But like I don't take any insulin and nothing ever happens. So it's great.
Awesome. All right. Working as planned. That's great.
So tell us a little bit about so you said 6th grade about being diagnosed. Like, do you remember what happened in the process? Like, did you have to go to the hospital?
Yes, I do remember. I was with my family. We were on a ski trip the week before I was diagnosed, and I was really weak and just not skiing as well, not as coordinated. And also just craving soda throughout the day. And I never drank soda. It was like I needed a Coke every single stop that we made. But feeling awful. Like I would finish the day on the slopes and come back and just lay on the floor for hours. And then when I got back from that trip, went back to school, and people were saying, you look pretty funny. Like you look really weird, actually.
What you want to hear as a 6th grader.
Totally, yeah. People were attributing it to, my parents initially were attributing it to like a growth spurt. Like maybe you're just thinning out and getting taller. But that would probably require like actually getting taller at the same time, not just thinning out. So then, push came to shove. I felt really sick that night. Next morning, went to the hospital, and my sugar was 666. So.
Wow. That's really high. That's a lot. Mine was only 420 when I went to the hospital. So wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So does anyone in your family have it?
No, nobody in my family. We do have some autoimmunity in general, and those things do travel together. It's not shocking, but
wow. That's crazy. So do you remember getting like a virus before? Like, were you sick, like from like the flu or anything like that before you were diagnosed?
I don't know. I don't think I was all that attuned to, I was young, and it's possible I was sick a month before.
Yeah.
But it was just the most noticeable thing was just like an exponential weight loss. Like I think in that day and a half before I went to the hospital, I lost like 7 pounds or something like that.
70?
Seven.
Oh,
But yeah.
I was like, what? 7,
Oh,
yeah.
But over the course of that month, it was like 30.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So when did you just start like deciding to help other people with type 1 diabetes? Like, how did you even get the idea to start creating a food product? When did that all come about?
Yeah. That's a generous way of putting it, I guess. I obviously wanted to make a snack that would work for me and other people. But it wasn't like I had like this like independent altruism and I needed to find a way to like channel it into a project. It was more like the project kind of fell into our laps, and we just ran with it. And it was really, I think, motivated by the idea. Like I just love those crispy pieces of omelet, and realized that they were low carb and didn't know of other crunchy low carb options. And so that must have discovered that like pretty shortly after diagnosis. Like I was making eggs a lot, and so that's something I was playing with.
Sure.
But it was really, and I looped a good friend of mine into that, like thinking at that time, like so he was aware of these egg chips I was making. But then we really revisited it when he applied to an incubator at his school. So this is my partner Nick Hamburger, and he applied to the Chicago undergrad incubator. And people were really excited about the concept, and I think they saw the vision in Nick, and they thought it was very promising, and they liked our prototypes, and so that's really what got us going. So that summer, after Nick had some success at that incubator, we both decided to take a year off of school and get going on the project.
That's amazing. So do you have a background in like food science?
No background in food science. It was a lot of learning
cooler.
that year. Yeah.
I'm sure you did. Yeah. So going away sort of from the business side. So like, what's one thing that you've maybe gone out of having type 1 diabetes? Like because a lot of, there's a lot of negativity around having diabetes, but like, what's one positive thing that's come out of it for you?
Yeah. Actually a handful of positive things. I think it actually does, especially at a young age, shapes personality development, for better or for worse. As all diabetics know, you have to be attuned to what's happening with your sugar at all times. So it's like sort of an extra program that we have to be running to, consider this stuff. But frankly, I think the brain responds to extra demands with extra supply, and I think potentially the attention of diabetics is ends up being expanded, and so. More specifically, I think it made me really curious and curious to figure out exactly what's happening with us, not just diabetics, but humans in general.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a window into the fact that we are these like self-regulating machines, and like a very early like quip from being a diabetic, just to help people understand, is like I'm effectively playing the role of a pancreas in addition to a person.
Yeah, it's funny because before I was diagnosed, I didn't know anything about diabetes, honestly. And so like, I have learned so much like since being diagnosed, just about the body and like how it works and what even a pancreas is and all of that. So you're right. It's like a quick way to grow up and learn really fast.
Totally.
So, go ahead.
One more piece on this. Like, I think again, for better or for worse, the other thing with diabetics is we do have to worry about damage and aging. Like, you ask, why do I want to avoid being low? Why do I want to avoid being high? And the answers there are pretty serious, like really serious. And so it definitely motivated me to think about health and really all the inputs to health in a way that I wouldn't have, I think, if not for diabetes. I was not a healthy kid. I didn't care. I was willing to eat whatever.
Not many kids care.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that accelerated or even made possible an interest in health that I would have had.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, what's one thing that you're still frustrated about with diabetes, or you wish was different, or you could, if you could change immediately, like what would it be?
Yeah. Oh, there's a handful. I mean, if okay, I don't want to be too pessimistic here, but just the risk of accelerated aging,
Sure.
and the way in which the aging happens, like
Hmm.
cardiovascular disease is scary, really scary.
All
So
of the
there's
thing, all of it, yeah.
yeah, all of that, yeah, totally. But I am optimistic now. I think the tighter control that the modern tools let us have, that's great.
Hmm.
One huge drawback that's no longer really as much of a concern is just like the constant risk, like the acute risk is alleviated by the CGMs, like
Yes.
and the pump, the control IQ. Like I'm not worried at night, and I was worried at night for the first 10 years of this experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good transition into like the tools that you use. So you're on a CGM, you're on a pump. So what CGM are you on?
I am on Dexcom G6 and on the Tandem Control IQ.
Okay. So, and you like them a lot?
Yeah, I do like them. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot.
that's awesome. I'm still on pens. So I'm considering going to a pump. So that's good to know.
How long have you had it?
I was diagnosed a year ago. So I haven't,
Okay.
it's only been a year.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I remember them being told like they wanted us to get used to the pens before transitioning, so that we'd have awareness of how to, the
Yeah.
backup plan basically.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And the other thing I'd say is, so I was on the pump about 5 years ago. Medtronics.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe probably more like 7 now. And I started to have like some issues at my sites, and so I went off and went back to pens.
Mhm.
And I actually like there was a nice transition. Like I felt liberated again when I did that. Like
Yeah.
felt like a little more control again.
Oh, wow.
Not as much worry about like just the site, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So but now that this control IQ thing really has the nights covered, especially,
Mhm.
it does seem like it's worth the trade off.
Yeah. And the technology is getting better and better, each year. So it probably is worth it. So yeah, I'm still considering it, but do you have any favorite like non-medical diabetes products that you use? Like specific
Yeah.
clothing, with pockets or a bag or, anything like that.
I do have like a bag. Actually, with the pump, I don't need to carry it around as much. Like now I just carry, like if I'm going on
Yeah.
a day trip, I just carry the pump and sugar, but that's it.
Nice.
But I used to have like a bag, like a single strap bag that I would wear. I guess not so much like clothing accessories, but like for food, I do have some strategies that I like that
Okay.
seem to help.
Let's hear 'em.
So one is, by the way, not a medical recommendation. Of
We're not
course.
doctors.
Yeah. But I am finding fasting for parts of the day really helps to control sugars quite a bit, because you can just stay pretty level if you've got your Lantus or your basal rate tuned in.
Yeah.
And so like, I would show my sugars from like overnight, like it's yeah, actually I'll show it. Like here's my, I'm not sure this is visible, like here's my 12-hour. Oh yeah, this is not so good. But yeah, okay, so you can see that little spike. That was like my last like food of the day, a little sugary than I should have had, but like I'll probably fast for another 4 or 5 hours, and I don't have to worry about leaving this like optimal range I'm in, because it just no interruption to that, because my basal rate is right. But then that should be paired with knowledge that when you break the fast, whatever glucose you put into your gut is going to get absorbed quicker. And so the real, like my favorite like food tech for controlling sugar is front load with fiber and protein, and then whatever carbs you have after that will be slower absorbed. So I hate these like rapid sugar spikes like that. That's the thing that makes me the most nervous about like damage. And so just buffering that with stuff that doesn't cause a spike and slows digestion of carbs, that seems to be the way to go.
Wow. So with the fasting, do you ever go low because you're not eating enough?
It could happen, but during my fast, like I'll have things like coffee and
Okay.
greens powder at some points. So another thing, I don't like to have sugar. I don't like to lean on my low sugar. I'd rather just avoid the lows altogether, or
Sure.
like as I'm going low, use something that's not sugar that I do want to consume like preemptively. So
Nice.
I've got a handful of things that I want to take, like coffee, like a greens powder, like fiber, that have these marginal impacts, maybe 10 or 20 points, and so I
Uh-huh.
can use those to buffer going low.
Oh, amazing.
But
So
then with the
is that your go-to like low snack? If you're getting low, that's what you choose, coffee or greens?
Yeah, well, if the low is like, if it's coming on so slowly because it's just a matter of like basal rate during a fast, then like, the pump is gonna suspend my basal, and so I don't have to worry about going that low that quickly because it's accounting for that trajectory. And so yeah, if I'm in that situation, then I'll just have something small, something that makes a marginal impact to avoid being low. If I am low and I do need food, like honey, actually,
Okay.
I've got these like 12-gram honey packets, and I'll take 2 of those on a run, for example.
Like the mini Justin's ones that are in the mini packets. Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah. They're I think it's not, my brand's not Justin's, but it's like that.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I guess that's the benefit of a pump. I always forget because like I'm on the long lasting. I just take once a day. So yeah, I forgot about that. That's beneficial.
Totally. Yeah. That is nice.
So do you remember like your worst low blood sugar experience?
I do, yes. So I have one experience where I had my lowest low, and then I had one experience where I had my like worst symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So lowest low came. This was before I was on the pump, or actually between pump experiences. Do you have morning syndrome?
Do I have what?
Morning syndrome, like rising sugars in the morning.
A little bit, but not a ton.
Okay, got it. That varies cyclically with me also. Like, I think, again, this is some speculation, not a doctor here, but like we do have glycogen stores, and those, so in our liver and our muscles, those are especially the liver, that's what's contributing to like rising sugar in the absence of insulin, and so that's what the basal rate is there to account for.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're relatively underfed, so like you've had fewer carbs over the last week, or you've done more exercise, then that rate of release of glycogen goes down, so you don't need, and insulin sensitivity goes up, so you don't need quite as much glycogen. So you might notice, like, if you had a high carb day today, tomorrow you might be more susceptible to rises, and I think that's like a carb surplus, and then increased release type of.
Yeah.
So I probably, when I was more overfed on carbs, less fasting, used to have pretty bad morning syndrome. So I would need 3 or 4 units, equivalent to 30 to 40 carbs for me, first thing in the morning, without food, without coffee. That's just what I needed to stay flat.
Okay.
So I would do that right on waking up. And so my worst low ever was when I did that, when I woke up in anticipation of getting up and starting my day, and then I fell back asleep. And so then I woke up an hour and a half later, having addressed the morning syndrome, preemptively, and my sugar was like, I think it was 32.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, good thing you woke up.
Yes.
And
Yes,
saw
totally.
it. Oh my goodness.
I know, totally.
When was that? Like, how long ago was that?
That was 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe about 3 years ago, I actually don't know my sugar this time, but my symptoms were, I had never had like any kind of confusion or slurred speech or anything like that from below until this occasion, and it hit me pretty quick. I was just like walking, and I got somewhat delirious. I think like I was with actually my co-founder, and he's never seen me like that, so he's like, "Are you really low right now?" And I was like, "I must be. Like, this is just so strange." Like, and so we were like in a food court, and so I sat down, had some Coke, I think. But it got better, but it was like, tongue numb type of symptoms, like just like,
that's scary.
confused. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, mine actually was pretty recent. I I actually don't know for sure if this is what happened. I'm just assuming this is what happened. I usually keep because I'm still in the pen, so I keep my long lasting separate from my fast acting. But that day I was about to go travel, so I had them right next to each other. And I think I took my fast acting instead of my long lasting in the morning because I remember I was sitting on the couch and I was like, whoa, I'm feeling like really dizzy. And I like looked and it said, I think like 60 go like double arrow down. And I went up and immediately started taking sugar, but it was going down so fast that like a couple sugar, I had glucose tablets. So I was like 3 glucose tablets wasn't doing it justice. And I was sweating profusely and like shaking and it was bad, but yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really bad. I was like drenched because I was sweating so much. It was pretty bad, but.
Did you end up rising the rest of the day?
I stayed actually, yeah. So I did. I was not like super high, but higher than normal the rest of the day.
Got it.
But
Okay.
I like made sure I was really nervous it was going to drop again. So I made sure kind of to stay high, but
Sure.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah, well, I was thinking like you would, if it's a 12-hour long acting, is that what it is?
No,
Okay,
24.
So 24. Okay. So probably if that's what happened, you would have like, you would have been potentially like in ketoacidosis like later that day without any insulin presence.
Oh wow.
So but I guess if you were dosing like bolus to cover the highs, then maybe you would have noticed. But
yeah.
It
It was a scary day for me for sure.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who was recently diagnosed? One piece of advice.
Well, I've got a little anecdote. On my way home from the hospital, I just been told all these things I needed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like keep a daily blood sugar and food journal, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, Dad, do I really need to do all that? Like, that sounds like a lot. And they were like, absolutely, this is serious. You need to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did, then I was like, okay, that's what I got to do. And just did a lot of experiments, basically. Like I was willing to check my sugar, every 10 minutes to get a sense of trajectories and, to do that sort of thing. And I learned a lot over that few months about just how my sugar behaved. So I think it's like, lean in. This is, you have to figure this out. And it's just best to have that mindset from the start.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's kind of hard because you just get thrown into it. And it's, one of those things you just have to learn it. You don't have really a choice. I mean, I guess you do, but if you want to stay alive, you got to learn it.
Totally. Yeah.
So if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be? Diabetes or not?
Yep. Okay. Can I get a little philosophical here?
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, all right. A thing is what happens when certain inputs. I'm sorry. A thing is the thing that translates inputs into outputs. Anything in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a causal story in a sense. Any person is receiving a world, and then they're processing that, and then they're spitting back out some actions. And I think when we say memory, we're basically saying like, or like be remembered for something. We're talking about like the way that the causal contributions that pass through us, and that we then give onto the world, like get retained in memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is we're built for that to be an important kind of thing for us to care about. Like we want our kids and our friends, and we want people to say nice things about us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my global I think it may make more sense to have an aesthetic, not necessarily for the memory that like a positive memory that is going to exist in other people's heads, but more like just the net causal contribution emanating out from you, whether or not anybody actually knows about that. And not only that, but also so it's not just that we're pass-through entities. Like it's not like we're a calculator, you press some buttons and then you get a result that's spit out.
Right.
We are that. Like certainly, you ask me a question, I say something in response, but we are also internally loopy in the sense that like things that have not yet turned into actions will be entertained inside the head for a long time. And so like our attitudes and orientations, all that stuff is internal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so even something that does not get translated into actions that are like discernible on your surface, like or as far as other people can tell, like I, in a sense, want to be remembered also for those, for that structure, that internal structure. I don't think anybody else will remember that, but I think it's, in fact, it is what the physics is up to through me right now. So that it's my arrangement, it's my ordering, and whether or not it gets heard, it is right now etching itself into the fabric of existence. So that's where we live. So no memory that I need others to have of me, but I want right now to like live on the frontier of holism and honesty and good attitudes, I guess.
That's a great answer. I love it. So do you have any last thoughts for our viewers? Anything else you want to add about type 1 diabetes, your experiences, anything?
Yeah, actually, a couple things.
Go ahead.
One thing, I just said this to a friend yesterday, because people, I think non-diabetics don't realize how difficult the balancing act is. One way of putting it is like, I do roughly 40 units a day, and my each of those units brings my sugar down roughly 40 points also. So if not for my control, that's 1,600 milligrams per deciliter of sugar rising. But a well-controlled person wakes up every day, they find themselves somewhere around 100 to 120 all the time, right? Or ideally. So it's like we have to deal with a flux equivalent to 1,600 and try and maintain order, right, in this very, very small regime. It's insane, like how much variability we actually have to account for, basically.
Yeah. Wow,
so
that's really a great way to put that, for sure.
A metaphor, it's like we're flying a plane 1,000 feet from the ground, and we have to keep it there. Like 3,000 and you're doing damage, 0 and you're game over. So it's really difficult. And I think people don't understand like just how little is required to go from 1,000 to 500 or 1,000 to 2,000, especially on the upper end. It's just like so easy to. Well, I mean, on both ends, really. It's.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, that difficulty, I think, just that's one piece. Just accepting that, like, I do a lot to keep my sugar intact, in check, and still, I spike frequently. So.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, not easy at all. The second piece is specifically for type 1s. In the culture right now, there's a lot of talk about glucose control and how essential that is. And if you listen to non-diabetics talk about that, you get the sense that a sugar of 150 is sudden death. Like, it's just like, that's the worst thing you could possibly imagine. I think what's actually happening is that the people that are using CGMs and watching their sugar spikes, there are reasons that glucose damages tissue. That's true. But it's not nearly as severe, I think, as is being talked about, or else diabetics wouldn't have a life expectancy that's actually pretty close to the average population. So I think what's happening in these non-diabetics that are seeing sugar spikes is that those activities that are causing the sugar spikes and the fact that the body's not capable of buffering that fully the activities are actually causing damage, and the lack of buffering is actually a signal that there is some dysregulation. So it's not that it's the sugar is a symptom, not a cause, or it's largely a symptom, not a cause. It's still probably a valuable target, because doing things that avoid sugar spike, it probably means you're eating lower glycemic foods, you're having more fiber, you're having more protein, you're being more active. So it's a good thing to strive for as a non-diabetic. But I don't think us diabetics should be worried about sugar in the same way that the culture is right now talking about.
That's good.
And then maybe the last one or two things. I've seen, so one of the symptoms of diabetes that you have the accumulation of byproducts, certain byproducts in the cell. So sorbitol is a byproduct of sugar that gets stored in the cell to excess, and that causes some issues. I would have to dig up the studies again, but type 1s, I believe our bodies know, and they are responding to the circumstance. So they are helping us to buffer some of the damage that would otherwise accrue if not for these buffering mechanisms.
Wow.
So I think the bodies are really smart. Like bodies strive for homeostasis, and they've got the intelligence to achieve that. Obviously, without a pancreas, it's harder. You need medical assistance. But I do think we are. I'm fairly optimistic that even though we should be accruing a lot of damage, like we're actually buffering that to a large extent. And then maybe the last thing I'd add is nutrient deficiency is a concern, actually. Like B vitamin status is lower in diabetics, that kind of thing. And there are many things that people can take that they should take. I think if you want like an all-in-one, like athletic greens is probably a really good thing for people to take because it's like multivitamin, things like alpha lipoic acid, which is really good for type 1s. But I guess the point I want to make is there's growing emphasis on just what we should be having in our diets so that we can have sufficient nutrient status and stay healthy longer. And I think diabetics have a little more reason to be concerned about that. But this is a good time actually to dive into that stuff because the science is there and there's a lot of products now on the market that can support that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thanks to you for creating one of them. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Zack, Z-A-C-K, at Quevos.com. Quevos is Quevos.
And if you haven't tried them, you got to try them because they're good. They're good snacks.
Yeah, please do.
All right.
Sour cream and onion, especially.
Is that the best one? I don't even. Okay, good. I'll try it.
Maybe tie with the honey mustard.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Zach. We really appreciate you doing this interview today, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.